welcome back to Korean Cinema Today, the official podcast of the Korean Film Council. So we're back for the second season of Korean Cinema Today to bring you more on the latest for Korean film. And of course, check our website, koreanfilm.or.kr for the latest news, interviews, features, our webzine and newsletter, all on Korean film. And find us on Facebook at facebook.com/kobiz.kofic. That's KOBIZ.KOFIC. And our Twitter handle is at Korean Film Biz. That's BIZ. Our first episode this season will be looking at the big Korean films this summer, the big blockbusters at the box office. And so here in Seoul on a beautiful sunny day, I'm your host, Pierce Conran. And today I'm joined by a co-host, my good friend, Nemo Kim, and correspondent for Variety, as well as an Asian film critic for Sight and Sound. So welcome, Nemo. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Hello, Piers. Good to be here. Lovely to be here with you.
So on July 23rd, the Korean summer box office season kicked off with Kundo, The Age of the Rampant. So this is a big new film from Yoon Jong-bin, who previously made Nameless Gangster and started off with The Unforgiven, a small indie film from 9 years ago, and starring the return of Kang Dong-won after his military service and big star Ha Jung-woo. So I know you're a fan of one of those actors. Nemo, you want to kick off and talk about that?
Oh dear, you're revealing my personal tastes already, Pierce. Yes, I am indeed a fan of Kang Dong-won. He actually went to high school with my husband.
Oh, wow.
So that's my very tenuous connection to Kang Dong-won there. Yes, Kundo. Other than that, yes, a very exciting film, full of action. Also, the family tragedy situation happening there for the Kang Dong-won character. Ha Jung-woo, what a transformation within the film and also from his previous characters in other films as well. And Ha Jung-woo couples up with Yoon Jong-bin once again. And I understand that they actually went to college together.
That would make sense. There must be a reason that they've made all of Yoon Jong-bin's films have starred Ha Jung-woo's. That's 4 films on the trot now.
That's right. And I actually went to see Kundo expecting to see beautiful scenes featuring Kang Dong-won, but came out having become a huge fan of Ha. He, I thought, was wonderful in Kundo. Dare I say, slightly better than Kang Dong-won.
Oh.
But he was equally good too,
Absolutely.
I thought. Yes, and all the supporting actors, Ma Dong-seok and Lee Kyung-young and Cho Jin-woong. Especially Cho Jin-young, I was very impressed with him. He was also in the next blockbuster that
Yes,
we'll
he's
talk
had
about.
a big year, actually. Also a hard day. His first kind of big role as an antagonist. Huge breakout for him in 2014.
And I'm sure all his efforts contributed to him getting the award at PFAN.
That's right. He got I forget the name of the award, but it's kind of the Breakout Star Award. Something,
Yes.
I forget the exact name. So yes, Kundo, a big period action blockbuster. I was a fan, and I agree. Ha Jung-woo, who has this natural charisma, always shines through in his films. And here he has the opportunity to have a little more fun with his character than usual, and that certainly comes through. Now, big stars, and big stars means big box office.
That's right.
July 23rd, when it opened, it had something in the region of over 2.1 million admissions, which at that point was the second biggest weekend for a Korean film. And so that was a huge start. And the film did it did slow down a little quicker than some anticipated, but a total gross of 4.77 million in admissions, which accounts to a shade under $37 million.
Right, a huge success for Showbox handling the film. Just going back to the cast there, I thought Ma Dong-seok's character was a little bit weak, and I thought that was a bit of a pity. He's always such a great actor.
He is, and of course, it's been a big year for him. He's had a lot of starring roles, including Kim Ki-duk's One-on-One, which screened at Venice last week.
You nearly said the Korean title there, didn't you?
I did,
Yes.
which is 1대1. Now that you teased it out of me.
Yes, Roaring Currents was the second blockbuster, second only in the chronological order of release. And the international title is Roaring Currents, but for its North American release, the title has been slightly adjusted to Roaring Currents, the Admiral, to make the historical aspect a little bit clearer for the North American audiences.
So, Roaring Currents, I mean, this film where do we start?
Huge in every sense, I would say.
Absolutely. So it's obviously this is a huge historical epic, big naval war film. Stars Chae Min-sik, well known across the world for Old Boy, and currently starring across the world in Lucy, along with Scarlett Johansson. In this movie, he plays Admiral Lee Sun-shin, which is a huge, national hero in Korea. His statue is in front of the Gyeongbok Palace. A very big story there. His kind of he led a small fleet of Korean ships against 12 ships exactly against an enormous fleet of Japanese ships. It's kind of like it's a Korean version of 300 with boats. In a sense.
Yes, right, yeah. Clothed version of 300, I heard somebody say. Yes.
a lot of emphasis on the costumes, which are very detailed and beautiful in the film, it must be said.
That's right. And it would be very interesting to find out what you, as a non-Korean, thought of it. Because for Koreans, this story is what we all know about. We all already knew before we went to see the film. We knew what was going to happen. So
Absolutely.
Story-wise, not much of a surprise. We knew that Lee Sun-shin wasn't going to die at the end of this battle, and so on. So what did you think of it, Piers?
Well, it's a very good question because the reaction from Western audiences versus domestic audiences is going to be quite starkly different for this film. I felt the film was very nationalistic. It was quite patriotic. And while I understand that to an extent, for me, the bombast was just a little bit too much. That said, it's certainly a film of two halves. The first half is a lot of setup, and the second half is the whole battle sequence. And, it's an expensive film. I believe the budget was reported at around $15 million. And you can see all of those on the screen. The second half is quite spectacular. But that first half for me did drag a bit. That's just my opinion as a foreigner, and because I just don't have the same association with that historical figure. Though I know of him, I've read about his exploits before. It's not something, of course, that I studied in school. I didn't grow up with that, so a little bit different. But what did you think about it?
Actually really enjoy the action scene
very
much.
Very well done. Of course, director Kim Han-min has a lot of action experience, not to mention action experience. He has period action experience. His last film was the blockbuster War of the Arrows. Now, what we really need to talk about here is the film's success.
That's right.
Biggest opening day of all time, followed by biggest weekend of all time, and smashing every possible record on the way towards the biggest total of all time.
The local press going gaga over the increasing success week after week, day after day, rather.
Absolutely.
Some saying that CJ Entertainment monopolized the screens too much, affecting kind of cutting short the success of Kundo, Age of the Rampant. What do you think about that?
I would have to agree. This film at one point was being shown on 8,000 screenings a day, which was, over a third of the possible screenings in the entire country. So that's like a massive advantage. Of course, it's a CJ title, CJ Entertainment, who, of course, affiliated with CGV, the largest exhibitor in Korea.
Yes.
So what you have is a vertically integrated system, something you don't see in America anymore for reasons that involve monopoly.
So a lot of Korean film professionals expressing concerns over this. And although many Korean journalists expressed joy at this revival of the Korean film industry and so on, many were at the same time very, very worried that this would signal the eventual death of the indie scene or titles from less important smaller and medium-sized companies.
Yes, it's certainly a double-edged sword. After a few years of remarkable growth, the Korean film industry is still very big this year, but the market share for local films has dropped significantly, though it's still doing well. There have been a few hits. But the summer had been a little tough up until that point. But when Roaring Currents came through, it really changed the narrative for Korean cinema in 2014. But yes, it does pose a significant issue for smaller releases. How do they get a piece of the pie? Now, we have another star in the film who's become a big star in recent years is Ryu Sung-ryong. He plays the Japanese admiral, so he's kind of the antagonist in this film.
Yes.
He was also the antagonist in Kim Han-min's War of the Arrows. And, of course, he's a big star, after Miracle in Cell No. 7 last year. So he's risen quite a lot in the last few years.
That's right, and I understand that he's very good friends with director Kim Han-min, so that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Sure.
Them two always working together. What did you think about his performance in Roaring Currents?
I like the actor quite a lot, but I must admit that in Roaring Currents, he's not asked to do very much. He has some very kind of ostentatious costumes, which are beautiful to look at.
Yes.
And he doesn't have much dialogue. He just kind of has to stand around, look really, really stern, have kind of very deep eyes, and just kind of look kind of villainous. And
shout out, Li Junjin.
Yes,
the
that's
whole time.
his very, very, very important that he does that. But he's
Right.
not given much to do. So I wouldn't say that he performed badly. He just didn't have much of a performance he didn't have an opportunity to do
I
much.
would have to agree with you on that. On the other hand, Cho Ji-neung, I thought, was excellent.
Again, yeah, his name has come up again already in this discussion. It's been a great year for him. And, I think he's a great actor. I've enjoyed him in small roles for years. And now here we go. He's getting his due at this point.
And my Japanese colleagues have told me that Cho Jin-young's Japanese, classical Japanese, medieval Japanese, I believe, was almost impeccable.
Wow, that's impressive. I wonder how fluent he is in Japanese in real life.
He says he didn't speak a word before he was cast.
All the more impressive.
That's right.
So speaking of big movies on boats, we actually have a few of those this summer. The next film to be released, which was in early August, on August 6th, was The Pirates. The local title is Hedgehog. So this is a Pirates film. Obviously, it's a swashbuckler, kind of in the same mold as the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And so another period film on boats. Yes, of all the films that were released this summer, that for me was definitely the most disappointing. I thought it was just far too derivative of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Kim Nam-gil's character is very much trying to be Jack Sparrow, but I'm sorry, he's not Johnny Depp, and there's nothing new that they're trying to do there. And the
I
film
actually
is very,
prefer Kim Nam-gil. Sorry to butt in there.
No, not at all.
I actually prefer Kim Nam-gil in a more serious, broody kind of
Sure,
role.
I think that suits him better.
I would have to agree. What about Son Ye-jin? She was pretty good. I must say, I had a fairly low expectation of her in this one, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
I'd have to disagree with you, I'm afraid.
Oh, dear. Pierce.
I found her very unconvincing. Son Ye-jin in the right role is quite good. She's very much, I loved her in A Moment to Remember all those years ago, and she has that kind of vulnerable innocence and that kind of a softer temperament that suits kind of melodramas and romance films.
Yes.
I found her not to be a convincing action star.
Maybe my expectation was maybe a little bit too low. But Yoo Hae-jin was excellent, as always.
Yes, he was the comic
saved
relief,
the film for me.
and also Park Chol-min, who was kind of his foil. They were the most fun thing in the film for me.
Yes.
They worked the best. So I was less happy with the leads in that movie, I must say.
So the Pirates overtook Roaring Currents back in August at the box office, which is a fairly exciting situation after weeks of Roaring Currents taking the top spot.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, out of those big three films that opened first, Kundo had a 2.1 million admissions weekend. Roaring Currents was 3.3 million. Pirates was only about 1.4, so it opened significantly lower. But it maintained course. It barely dropped in week 2, and now it's well over 6 million admissions.
Yeah, but the fact that it beat out Roaring Currents, that was the significant thing.
It is. But it did when Roaring Currents was in its 4th week, to be fair.
Yes. It was dragging on a little bit. Yes.
I mean, it's sitting on almost 17 million admissions now. I think we can't begrudge it its success
enough,
at this point.
yes.
They've had enough. We need to give some to someone else.
Yes, someone else's turn now. So shall we move on to Hemu?
Yes, we have our third film on boats.
And I would say Hemu is the most independent film out of the 4 blockbusters, despite being produced by Bong Joon-ho. And another one, as you mentioned, another maritime. So moving on to, I guess, the most independent film out of the 4 summer blockbusters, Hemu, directed by Shim Sung-bo. Should we talk a little bit about Shim?
Absolutely. So this is his first film, but he's hardly a rookie to the industry.
That's right.
He was the writer of none other than Memories of Murder, which, as some people may know, is my favorite film by a distance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I absolutely love
Wow.
it. So, of course, this is a film I was very, very excited about. And so roles are kind of reversed here a little bit. The director, famous director of Memories of Murder, Bong Joon-ho, steps onto Haemu his first credit as a producer. He also co-wrote a film along with director Shim Song-bo.
That's right. So Shim definitely not a newcomer into the industry, although this was the first his first directorial effort. Out of the 4 blockbusters, box office wise, performed. I don't know. Should we say it? Should we come out and say it?
Call a spade a spade.
Yes,
it didn't do very well.
yeah.
I'm very sad to say that it bombed. I was hoping the film would do very well. Now, there are reasons for that, and it's probably on a
Go
more
on then,
serious
yes.
note. Of course, we all know a big event that happened in Korea this year was the Sewol disaster, and I think a movie like Roaring Currents, which managed to, it was a film that people could take pride in, a national hero, that was a big part of the film's success, I think.
Especially set in the same region.
Yeah, as well,
as
exactly.
the disaster.
Yeah, so people who just there's been kind of a feeling, an atmosphere of lingering shame of that incident, and this was something to kind of restore confidence in the country. On the flip side, Haemu, which is I think a wonderful film, was in the unfortunate position of having many, again, unfortunate parallels with the disaster.
Yes.
It's quite a dark movie. And of course, the movie was already wrapped before it happened. This is completely incidental. But I think people were not ready to dive into that.
I would say, although Roaring Currents was, as you mentioned, based on historical facts, as you mentioned, based on some historical facts, Haemu was by far the most realistic piece out of the 4, wouldn't
certainly.
you say? Right.
And also based on a historical fact. Although, again, interestingly, both Haemu and Memories of Murder were based on plays that were based on real events.
Right.
An interesting little sidebar there.
Little side thing there. Yes, and let's talk a little bit about the cast. Once again, very, very interesting. Park Yoo-cheon. I loved Park Yoo-cheon in this one. And I think many industry professionals as well as audience members were surprised precisely because Park Yoo-cheon is a member of a very popular boy group, JYJ.
That's right. I completely understand the desire to cast a big idol star like that in a leading role in the film. You're trying to tap into a built-in audience. I'm always a little nervous. Is it gonna go well or not? And it kind of tends to go either way. Last year there was the film Rough Play with Lee Jun from M Black. That was a very impressive debut for him.
Certainly, yes. Many people were very, very shocked, I think.
Yeah, because he was great. And I think the same thing here. I think I was...
Yes.
I was waiting to see what would happen, but he was terrific. And that's no mean feat given what is really a terrific cast. And in a film, for me, of many qualities, the casting might be its strongest one. We have Kim Yoon-suk, of course, the big gruff star of films like The Thieves, The Yellow Sea, and many, many others.
Han Ye-ri,
who's had a very big year for her. So, we have Park Yoo-cheon, a big K-pop star, and this is something we've been seeing a lot in Korean films recently. There's this desire to kind of cast these young stars who have big built-in followings, and I'm always a bit nervous about that because is it just kind of a stunt casting? Is it going to work? Now there have been some terrific examples, and one that comes directly to mind is last year's Rough Play, which was the big screen debut of Lee Jun, a member of the very popular boy band M Black, and he was terrific, and I think everyone was very surprised by that performance.
I would have to disagree with you slightly on that point. I don't think it's just a one-sided demand, one-sided request on the part of the director to cast these big names. I think these idol stars have this desire to be taken more seriously and also to stretch their acting muscles. I know for a fact that Lee Jun felt that way. And although I don't know Park Yoo-cheon on a personal level, I'm sure that is something that he really wanted to experience. And having talked to director Shin Yeon-sik of Rough Play, he said that he is planning to cast more idol stars in the future because they have the discipline and the training and the focus necessary for acting.
That's a very fair point. I certainly, you can see in a performance like Lee Jun, he's obviously trying to kind of break out in this.
Yes.
And I suppose with these K-pop stars, their K-pop careers have somewhat of a short shelf life. So they need to kind of move on to different pastures. And, being taken seriously as an actor,
That's right.
What better thing to do for them?
And this is, of course, the debut film of Park Yoo-cheon. Other than Park, we have other big names too. Kim Yoon-seok, Han Ye-ri. It's been a busy year for her. And also Moon Sung-gun, a veteran name in the Korean acting field.
Absolutely. It's really an amazing ensemble cast and some of the best performances of their careers for some of them. And so to have someone like Park Yoo-cheon, a young rookie come into that cast and really hold his own in a leading role was just very, very impressive.
Yes.
So, a terrific cast in Haemu. And talking a little bit about the story, I think. We've already alluded to the screenplay, but what it is based on this real event that happened in 1998, where a fishing boat took on some illegal immigrants, some Chinese-Korean immigrants, and on the way back, bad things happened. To say any more would spoil it.
To say the least.
To put it mildly.
Happen. Yes.
It is a very, very dark film, much darker than you would expect a blockbuster to be. But perhaps with Bong Joon-ho attached, perhaps that's not so surprising. A lot of people, when Snowpiercer was initially released last year, when it was screened for the press, I remember leaving the outside of the bustle outside the screening. People, their immediate reactions was, wow, that was really, really dark for a big blockbuster. And this is kind of it's a very different film, but also a very bleak film. But it certainly fits the mood that it creates. And for me, it worked very well.
And also what was interesting for me was with the other blockbusters, Roaring Currents, The Pirates and Kundo, you kind of knew before you went in to see them that you kind of knew what to expect to a degree.
Absolutely. You knew what you were getting yourself in for.
But with Haemu, you had no idea what you were in store for.
It was definitely a wild card, and that made it a little more exciting. I mean, I'm biased because just having Bong Joon-ho's name anywhere near a film is going to get me really kind of excited. But it's true, I sat down, I didn't really know what was going to happen. I just didn't know what the tone was going to be like, and so that was kind of exciting to have that kind of wash over me. And I think people that have seen it have been, even if they don't like the film, they've reacted to it, which is a good thing.
So is the general consensus between the two of us in this studio that the recommendation should be Haemu?
For me, certainly. I think that was the best film for me there. I know it's one that's performed the least well, but it's already doing well internationally. In September, it's premiering internationally as a gala screening at the Toronto International Film Festival. It's also screening at the San Sebastian and Vancouver International Film Festivals. So 3 big events right there.
So some chances for our listeners overseas to catch Haemu. And if you can, try and watch Kundo also, my favorite.
Actually, Kundo was released on August 29th, courtesy of Wellgo USA, a well-known distributor of Asian genre fare in North America. So limited release there on August 29th. The Admiral Roaring Currents, as it's known in the States, was self-distributed by CJ on July 15th. Apparently, it's done quite well there. Last I heard, CJ reported it made something in the region of $1.2 million, a significant amount for a Korean release. The Pirates is going to be released in North America, though a date has not been picked yet. And Haemu, with a name like Bong Joon-ho attached, you can be sure that it'll be in North American theaters before long.
That's right. So try and catch all of these wonderful Korean films soon, wherever you live.
So today we had a chat about the 4 big summer blockbusters that tore up the box office, at least most of them. So those were in order: Kundo, Age of the Rampant, Roaring Currents, The Pirates, and Haemu. We hope you'll all get a chance to see them very soon. I'd like to thank my co-host Nemo Kim for being in the studio today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Piers.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion and tune in again next time for Korean Cinema Today.